Hey guys, what's going on? John here from What's Spinning, here tonight to chat about the new Matmos album, Plastic Anniversary. Matmos are an electronic music duo. They've been together since the late 90s, specializing in the more abstract side of electronic music. And I've had my moments with these guys over the years. I've really liked some of their stuff, but like in the early days, I really didn't get what these guys were going for, or at least it wasn't for me. Like their self-titled debut from way back when, I found that album more annoying than anything, to be honest. But some of the themes around this album, like the way that they approached this theme of everyday life, I thought was pretty cool. No, it really wasn't until 2001's A Chance to Cut is a Chance to Cure that I really got into these guys. This was a very sample-based electronic album with some very jazzy tendencies and some very eclectic production. Like, I still wasn't into some of the tracks that had vocals, but I did get what they were doing here, at least. But with 2003's The Civil War, I really started getting into Matmos. There was still a ton of very glitchy, ambient electronic tracks here, but it was mixed with all these adventurous subgenres like Americana and Celtic folk, as well as a lot of ambient sounds as well, and I loved this. Now, going forward, I still feel like Matmos over the years did release a handful of albums that I wasn't into, like The Rose Has Teeth in the Mouth of the Beast and Supreme Balloon. I just really wasn't into either one of these. But more recently, I found myself getting back into Matmos. 2013's The Marriage of True Minds was really fascinating. This was once again a very heavy sample-based album, but I felt like it just worked really well with this very eclectic atmosphere. And 2016's Ultimate Care 2, their famous washing machine sampling opus. Like, I loved the hell out of this thing. Like, going into this album, I didn't know what to expect. Like, how could you? But this is a strangely intense and dramatic album as far as electronic music goes, and I love the hell out of it. So far, I've really been impressed with what I've been hearing from this album as far as the singles go. So let's chat about this thing. Now, it might just be me, but after listening to that Gesaffelstein project, I really wanted a great electronic album to listen to. This album starts off with Breaking Bread. Right off the bat, I am loving this. I love the glitchy production here, and the serious funk that rolls in as well. Didn't see that coming. Not to mention, it's a pretty stripped down track at the end of the day. Like, it's not too massive, it's not too suffocating. Not to mention, it's genuinely easy to get into. But it's just a very fun, colorful, quirky tune that just gets you in the right mindset for the rest of this album, and more than anything, just shows you what Matmos can do, and really fast too. The Crying Pill, on the other hand, is just the far opposite of that intro. This is a much more on-edge tune, filled with a serious sense of anxiety and claustrophobia. Compared to some of the carefree tunes here, this one just sort of creeps along very slowly, until it just explodes in this very colorful and animated fashion. This track is seriously very exciting, and eventually this one evolves into a very upbeat, colorful, and quirky jam. Like, I'm just gonna say it now, I don't even want to try and figure out the series of plastic objects that they've used to sample on this album, because if you haven't guessed it, that's the theme here. But still, this is stunning, not to mention pretty damn groovy and genuinely wild. Later on, we get a Thermoplastic Riot shield. Right off the bat, you can cut the tension with a knife. This one is just suffocating and has absolutely tons of atmosphere. But then this industrial beat comes in and slaps you in the damn face. It's so obvious for Matmos, but it's something that I really didn't expect, and it is so exciting to hear. This one is intense. It ends up having some great grooves by the end of it, but it's just as glitchy and genuinely experimental. Tribal beats, wonky samples, everything about this is thinking outside the box. Collapse of the Fourth Kingdom, very late in the album, is easily the most straightforward and genuinely urgent tracks here. Once again, we get these big drum samples, as well as this absolutely screeching whistle in the background. Like, this is chaotic as hell for the most part. And yeah, it's really exciting. Some of these samples that they work into drum fills, as well as the very jazzy undertones like Yes Please. Like, this is pretty late in the album. Matmos continued to just have tons of tricks up their sleeves. Colorful, wild tricks, but tricks nonetheless. Not to mention, this track ends with this wild, disgusting meltdown that just seems so necessary. I love it. On the other hand, there are a ton of tracks on here that are much more experimental as well. Take, for example, Interior with Billiard Balls and Synthetic Fat early on in the album. You may have guessed it, this one shows Matmos sampling a pool cue. And my friends, it's certainly not easy to take in. But as this one rolls on, it's legitimately creepy at points. It's whimsical, it's dark, and at the end of the day, it's just another very masterfully put together experimental ambient track. The title track here, Plastic Anniversary, instantly is just a fascinating tune. It's much less in your face and wild, but it's seriously tender and has almost a very classy feel to it. And as it picks up into a much more upbeat rhythm, strangely enough, I can't help but get a little emotional. Of all the tracks on here, I feel like this one is Matmos's, mission statement for this album. And just a wonderful reminder of what they can do. And if that wasn't enough, the second portion of this track is bigger and even more elegant. Intense drums, this weird fanfare, this track amps me up to no extent. Then we have Fanfare for Polyethylene waste containers. This one starts off with this very cosmic, otherworldly sort of groove that instantly gets me moving. And once again, we get these almost tribal sounding drums in the background. Not sure how they pulled that off or what they sampled, but they amp me up so much and they are such a great touch to this album. And the very dreary tone to this track too is great. This track just reminds you just how much Matmos can do with so little. That's what makes this album so interesting. Now, overall, I do feel like this is one of the freshest electronic albums I've heard in a while, but there are a couple of tracks here that just are a little meh for me. The Extending the Platosphere interlude, it's 15 seconds or something like that, and it's pretty cool, but it easily could have been tied on to another track here. And Silicone Gel Implant actually may be my least favorite tune of the bunch. And it starts out as actually one of the quirkiest and most colorful tunes here. It certainly has its moments, the sampling is still very wild and colorful. But for me, I honestly feel like this track lacks the purpose that other tracks here have. Other tunes here have been just as wild, just as colorful, but they would at least end up moving on to some sort of groove or something. But this one just hops and bops all over the place. But yeah, that's exciting in its own right, but it's just not what I'm interested in hearing from Matmos. The singing tube late in the album is easily the most hard to place track here. This one really takes 2 or 3 listens just to get anything out of. And honestly, as far as sampling goes, this may be my least favorite track of the bunch. I can't hate on it completely because I think that low-key groove in the background is fantastic. But as far as the complete picture goes, this isn't nearly as interesting. And Platosphere as a finale, man, what a letdown. This is easily the most slow-burning and patient tune here because nothing practically happens in it. Sure, I did need sort of a cool down after some of the massive, wild last few tracks. But this is barely a song. It's literally just a series of ambient sounds, which is cool and all, but this as a finale just sort of sounds cheap. So overall, I still think this is a genuinely fascinating and exciting electronic album, and Matmos are doing things right now that just nobody else are really doing. It's colorful, it's ambitious, it's chaotic at parts. I just wish that some of these tunes just had a little bit more purpose. This could have easily been a fantastic electronic album, and maybe even electronic album of the year, but some tunes here just don't hit nearly as hard. But still, the highs are incredibly high. I'm feeling a strong 7 on this album, but let me know what you guys think down below. If you liked the video, as always, give us a like and give us a subscribe. And let me know down below what you'd like for me to chat about in the future. And until next time, have a great day, guys.